I will begin with a fuck-up. I thought there's gonna be an interlude, so I have time to connect my laptop, but no. So I'm gonna do it publicly. I hope it works. Can I have my slides, please? My best ideas come to me the night before the speech, so I spend most of the nights before the speech completely redoing the slides. Anybody has that? Yeah, it's a download, just doesn't arrive on time. Now, today I headed on my way to the venue in a taxi cab, which I'd say is a bit last minute. I would prefer it sooner, please, next time, if that's a possibility. So it's a completely different presentation from that was announced. Sorry for that, it just happens. So the topic is how to be inspirational. And I now live in Amsterdam, but this story began when I was still living in Moscow while studying at a business school in France. I'm very international. So at the time, I was interested in organizational decision-making. And I had a research question which was formulated like this: how do we make decisions that we don't regret later? And the reason I was asking this question is because I was the guy. I was going through a very difficult breakup. I was super depressed. I was taking antidepressants. I had a lot of trouble sleeping. I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning each day, never falling asleep again. Horrible. So I had a lot of emotional problems. Like my emotions were running my life. And what I was hope to discover in my research interviews is that surely these big guys in these large corporations, surely they are in control. Surely they are much more reasonable and rational. Of course, they are knowing what they're doing, right? And truth is, they are. They actually are much more rational. And the reason, not because they're so much smarter than us, but because they have to explain their decisions all the time. Right? To the board and to the team, follow your gut is a really shitty advice to people in high towers, because why did I followed my gut? Oh, great, congratulations. What a great strategy, right? So, there's this whole debate which controls what, and I was betting on this guy. But then I started doing my interviews, and very soon I discovered that this is really not true, that the best decisions people make in their lives are not rational or emotional. They are inspirational. They are both rational and emotional. You see, these are not parts of the same continuum. These are not polar opposites. You can have neither. And neither nor heart. And most decisions we do, sadly, have neither. But best decisions have both. People were telling me in interviews stuff like, the time I'm spending with this organization doesn't make me a better person. This very high-ranking guy was deliberating whether to quit his job or not. And this was the question that was key for him. Right? Everybody abandoned the founder. This guy joined a startup. And in a week after he joined, most of the team left. Not because of him, it was just a coincidence. They were poached by a different company. So his logic was, well, everybody left, so surely I must stay. Now, is this logical? Well, to an extent it is. He became co-founder. And now it's a multi-million-dollar business. So it was kind of logical. But can you actually count that far? You can't, right? There's no way. Honesty is an asset. This guy was a financial controller. He was hired by a huge holding company, and there was a lot of construction involved, and like it happens in construction, people were embezzling money. So he was like, okay, they hired me to know the truth, so I'm going to tell them the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. Because people hire me because I'm honest. Honesty is my asset. Right? Even if that involves me being chased around by mafia in Moscow, because this is what they do. Honesty is an asset. So, in our industry, most of the speakers who will be on stage today, this is the icon, right? This is the legend. We have secret temples devoted to this guy. This guy invented everything. I think he invented air. He was the one who came up with this idea. Oh, but you can have reason and emotions. Before him, we didn't know. We had no idea. We were like, what do we use? And he was like, emotions and, oh, thanks for that. But you see, he also had something else. So he had logos, which were logic, pathos, which were emotion, and Flo will tell you all about it. And there was one other thing, ethos, and I was never taking any interest in that. And I was like, what the heck is this? What is this, please? Can I have an explanation, please? And so in Aristotle, it's trust. So I decided to dig deeper, but what it is about. And then I went on, and now this is the stage where my friends started telling me, Alexei, don't go there. It's a trap. They were starting saying goodbye to me. Okay, see you in the next life, So phronesis is practical wisdom. Sophia is just wisdom, and phronesis is practical wisdom, apparently. That's a good thing. Eunonia sounds like a disease, but something you get if you drink too much Coke, right? Oh, I have this eunonia. No, eu means good. Whenever you see a Greek word which starts with eu, it means good. So it means benevolence, bene in Italian, right? Goodwill. And then arete. What is arete? Now, arete is the root for the word you know all. It's the root for the word aristocracy, right? Because arete is virtue. Aristocrats are the virtuous people, and the rest of us, of course, are trash. This is how it goes. So, virtue. That's a bit so strange. Who doesn't know what virtue is, by the way? Some people, yeah. We don't use this word anymore. In contemporary personality psychology, they call about personality traits, like kindness and generosity and honesty. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, being good is good, that's a bit boring, but yeah, how do you do that, really? So, well, I went to TED, right, and I tried to see and analyze the presentations, whether they're doing any of that stuff. And the way they do it, they juxtapose it, they contrast it with weaknesses. So they come out on stage as weak people, and then they become strong. And you see the process and transformation, and this is how it connects to the audience. So if you look at top 10 TED presentations, top 3 TED presentations, really. Now, these are all rhetorical masterpieces, like tens of thousands, millions of views there. They should be studied in schools, right? Ken Robinson, who saw Ken Robinson's speech? Right. Half of the audience. So he's limping, so he comes on stage limping, and then he says, the first thing he says, I work in education. And you're like, oh, okay, all right. But then he comes out as funny and resourceful guy. So you have, yeah, but this lady, for one thing, she's a lady, which is important for her speech. But then she also survived a debilitating car crash. But then she persevered. Right? So, yeah, she's a feeble woman, but she's strong, really. Now, this guy, you can see it on the subject of his talk. He's a procrastinator, but he's a master procrastinator. Right? And virtue, we actually have this word still in our language, virtuoso. Right? Being virtuous means mastering something. So he's a master procrastinator. So, that's not all, by the way. That's just the first part, because this guy was the first, but then a couple of more guys happened to moral philosophy. This guy and this guy. Now, this slide exemplifies everything that is wrong with how we teach philosophy today. Because it should be this. Right? Why is it this? As if philosophy is supposed to make you happy. By the way, it mostly doesn't. I read research on that. It attracts very unhappy people, and it makes them more unhappy. But I survived somehow. I don't know. I'm the exception, perhaps. So, there. So, Jeremy Bentham, the middle guy, and John Stuart Mill, they came with this idea that, oh, but it's the purpose of your actions that make your actions good, that make your actions inspirational. Right? And for purpose in corporations, we have this handy framework. What you start with solution, with the problem, then you have a solution, and then you have vision. I have a dream in Martin Luther King's speech, right? This so wonderful world of equality in his. So I only have one addition, that it has to be a moral problem. Now, what is a moral problem? Let me explain. Now, a moral problem is, do schools kill creativity? When something kills creativity, is this a problem? Yeah. But is this a moral problem? No. But if we make it about children, it becomes a moral problem. That's a hint for you. Whenever politicians start talking about children, run. With that agenda, they can do anything. They can justify, literally anything can be justified. That's because in some countries, they are forbidding to use children in advertising because it works so well, right? So your body language may... The subject of her talk is confidence. Is confidence a problem? Lack of confidence, rather. Is it a problem? The answer is no. It's a nuisance, right? But she is making it really about equality. She says that the people who feel less confident are underprivileged people, people of lower stature. So she's trying to elevate them, so it becomes a completely different story. And this is where you get standing ovations and applauses. Right? With this guy, is procrastination a problem? Yeah, it is. Well, we used to call it sloth, right? We don't do that anymore, because that's like everybody has procrastination. But then he reframes it completely. He says, yeah, but it stands in the way of our creative genius. And that it becomes a real serious problem. It becomes the moral problem. Now, there's no line that separates morality from everything else. So I encourage you to use that supreme justice criteria. When I see pornography, I know it's pornography. Right? So when I see something and it feels like morality, it is morality. If it touches you deeply, then it's moral. Principle, the third part of the equation. Now, how do you end a presentation? All in unison. How do you end a presentation? Thank you, slide. No, no. That's one of the worst ways to end a presentation. The mantra is that you end a presentation with a call to action. That's your ask. You ask the audience to do something. And not for you, but for the greater good, really, right? So this is really not the end. You have to end with a call to action, but also with the why. Simon Sinek says, start with why. I think many of you heard this presentation before, right? But I also say end with why as well. It's a good idea to end with the principle that is behind the action you are proposing. Let me give you some example. Oh, this is Kant, by the way. With Amy Cuddy, what she did, she said, wow, you should be really trying power posing. Now, disclaimer, doesn't work. In about 10 years, we've came to a conclusion that this whole idea doesn't work. Still makes it a great rhetorical speech, by the way. Doesn't subtract anything out of it. It's still a great speech. So try power posing and share it with people. You see, it's a good thing. Sharing is good, right? But then she got, because the people who can use it the most are the ones with no power. Wow, can you feel it? So she makes it about justice. She makes it about equality. A simple thing. And this is how you get big rounds of applause in the end. So it was the right thing to do. I heard so many people tell me this in the interviews. Don't do it for me, don't do it for yourself. Do it because it was the right thing to do. And this is where you get this trembling silence in your speech. There's going to be more of that. I don't know if you've noticed over the last couple of years, but the levels of uncertainty are rising dramatically. right? Robots are going to have all the certainty because they are the ones who are going to have all the data and they know how to use it. Right? For us humans, the decisions we are going to make, and not the robots, are decisions under the condition of uncertainty, where we have no clue how to decide. And the decisions people never regret are decisions made out of good moral principles. No matter how it ends up, they can crucify you, but you will still feel good about yourself. And if you think about it, that's the most important part, right? Being happy. So I think we are gonna need to involve in a more decision-making. You see, rules don't work anymore because the world is so unpredictable and narrow rules, we just cannot fit into, they don't fit the context, right? So this whole organizational drive about organizational values, who has organizational values in your organization? Quite a lot of you, right? And they're very hard to apply, right? They're too abstract. We don't know, okay, we have this trust, what do we do with it? How do we apply it? We want behaviors, right? Not values. And principles is something that connects values with behaviors. Principles is something that leads to decision, and I contend that it leads to better decisions, decisions that you don't regret later. So we have to engage in more meaning-making, personal meaning-making, because we cannot trust these institutions anymore. There's governments, corporations, churches, because we know, for one thing, they're a bit outdated, but secondly, they have their own interests. You have to come up with your own sets of principles. And if enough people connect to your principles, you win. That's how it works. And then you have to broadcast these principles. You have to be explicit about them. You have to make this plea, this call for action, and then justify it with the principles. So, this is the framework. It looks easy, it's really not. As you start doing it, you will hit certain barriers. But you're a bunch of smart people, and I trust you will be able to overcome it. Just keep it going, it really works. So, I want to follow my own advice and end with a huge moral principle. Whenever you're doing something, or whenever you're up here on stage, because do you remember Andy Warhol said that in the future, everybody's going to have their 15 minutes of fame. This is my 15 minutes of fame, and sooner or later you will be on this stage or on some other stage. So when you're talking, ask yourself, yeah, but what does that inspire? Be an inspiration for other people. Be the change you're trying to create. Thank you.